Have you ever felt that the deeper you think, the more alone you become, that the clearer you see the world, the more people look away? It's not just in your head. Throughout history, society has always feared the deeply intelligent, not because they were wrong, but because they saw what others didn't want to see. From Socrates to Schopenhauer, from Galileo to Turing, brilliant minds weren't celebrated in their time. They were silenced, mocked, exiled. Why? Because truth is dangerous, and intelligence, the kind that cuts through illusion, is the most dangerous truth of all. This is not a video about elitism. It's not about being smarter than everyone else. This is about the deep discomfort that intelligence provokes and why it scares the world into silence. Welcome to Echoes of Wisdom. Today we dive into the mind of Arthur Schopenhauer to understand why intelligence feels like a curse and how the world treats those who see too much. In a world that worships appearance over substance, the intelligent person is a threat. They don't play the game, they don't pretend. They don't say what you want to hear, they say what you need to hear, and for that, they pay the price. According to Schopenhauer, intelligence does something radical. It strips away the comforting delusions most people live by. While others seek comfort, deep thinkers seek truth. And that truth? It's not always pretty. Imagine this. You're in a room full of people laughing at something shallow. You say something deep, thoughtful, honest. The room goes quiet. They smile politely. Then someone changes the subject. You didn't say anything wrong, but you said something real. And in today's world, real makes people uncomfortable. Schopenhauer saw intelligence not as a ladder to success, but as a window into the abyss. The more intelligent you are, the more you notice the lies, the illusions, the contradictions. And once you see them, you can't unsee them. You see how society rewards conformity, not curiosity. You notice how truth is replaced with trends, how depth is drowned in entertainment. You begin to realize that what people really want is not wisdom, but comfort. And that's where the isolation begins. Schopenhauer believed that human behavior is driven by what he called the will, a blind, irrational force pushing people to survive, reproduce, dominate. Most people, he said, live according to the will to live. They want pleasure. They want safety. They want control. But the intelligent person, they're driven by something else, the will to truth. They don't just want to live, they want to understand. And that creates conflict. Because when someone sees through the lies, when they stop pretending, they become a threat to the entire structure holding society together. They stop believing in polite fiction. They stop worshipping status. They stop nodding along. They ask questions that pierce the armor of comfort. Why do we chase success that doesn't satisfy? Why do we pretend to believe what we don't? Why do we fear being alone when most company is shallow? These questions are like dynamite, and society, built on illusion, does everything it can to silence them. Think of it like this. When someone is taller, you look up. When someone is richer, you admire or envy. But when someone is smarter, when they see deeper, speak sharper, cut through the noise, you feel exposed. That's the mirror effect. Deep thinkers reflect back the things people try to avoid. Their very presence says, there's more, look deeper. And most people, they can't handle that. So instead of engaging, they dismiss. Instead of listening, they ridicule. Because it's easier to mock what you don't understand than to face what you secretly fear. In today's world, intelligence is filtered through algorithms. Social media doesn't reward depth, it rewards speed, shock, outrage. People don't want nuance, they want dopamine. They don't want a philosopher, they want a viral clip. So the deep thinker who speaks with caution, who weighs ideas carefully, is drowned out by the loudest voice in the room. Not because they're wrong, but because they're quiet. Schopenhauer warned us, the more you understand, the harder it becomes to speak, because the truth isn't loud, it's heavy, and when you carry it, you walk alone. But here's the twist. Intelligent people don't isolate because they hate others. They isolate because connection becomes exhausting. It's not about being antisocial. It's about craving something more than surface-level banter. You can't pretend to laugh at jokes that aren't funny. You can't fake interest in small talk. You want conversations that burn, ideas that bite, moments that matter. And until you find them, you'd rather be alone. That's not arrogance, that's integrity. Schopenhauer offered no illusions. He didn't promise that truth would make you happy. He believed that the more you see, the harder it becomes to smile mindlessly. But he also believed in the power of that clarity, because with clarity comes choice. You see how things really are, and that means you can decide how to live, how to love, how to lead, even if others never understand you, even if they call you cold, distant, or too intense. Because being misunderstood is the price of insight, and for those brave enough to pay it, there's something waiting. Freedom. Let's take a breath. Because if this resonates with you, then you already know. You're not here to be liked. You're here to wake up. You're here to challenge what others accept. You're here to think. And yes, that's lonely. But you're not alone. History is full of minds like yours. Society cast them aside. Time brought them back. Socrates, mocked and sentenced to death for corrupting the youth. Galileo, imprisoned for telling the truth about the stars. Nietzsche, dismissed as mad, now quoted across the globe. Each of them saw too early, spoke too honestly, lived too fiercely. They weren't wrong. They were right too soon. And maybe so are you. Maybe your mind was built not to follow the world, but to question it, peel back its layers, to endure its silence, and to still speak. Because intelligence isn't about knowing everything, it's about daring to know at all, to look directly at what others avoid, to carry questions that have no answers, to live with the discomfort of truth in a world addicted to illusion. And yes, it's isolating, but that solitude, it's not empty, it's fertile ground. It's where your mind becomes sharp, where your vision becomes clear, where your soul stops begging for permission and starts standing on its own. Schopenhauer once said that the wise are like eagles, flying alone in the higher regions of the air, while the rest flutter together far below in the dust and confusion of the earth. It's a lonely metaphor, but it's also beautiful, because it means the loneliness of intelligence isn't a flaw, it's a feature. It's the space required to see what others can't, to feel what others suppress, to become what others never dare. You weren't meant to fit in, you were meant to illuminate, and illumination takes time, it takes stillness, it takes courage. The world may never give you applause for thinking deeply. It may never reward your clarity, your honesty, your intensity. But that's not why you do it. You do it because something inside you won't settle for less. You do it because you'd rather be true than popular, because you'd rather lose followers than lose your soul. And in a time where everyone's shouting to be heard, your silence speaks volumes. Your restraint is revolutionary. Your solitude is sacred. This is not a call to arrogance. It's a call to authenticity. It's not about claiming superiority. It's about claiming responsibility. You've been given a rare mind, not better, not worse, just different. And that difference is your burden, but it's also your gift. You see the strings behind the puppet show. You hear the silence beneath the noise. You sense the weight behind the words people say without meaning. And because of that, you have something most people never find, a compass. Not the kind that points to money or fame or validation, but the kind that points to truth. And yes, truth is often ugly. It ruins illusions. It ends comfort. It breaks things that seemed perfect. But it also reveals beauty where no one else thought to look. It finds meaning in pain, wisdom in solitude, power in simplicity. It whispers that even if the world rejects you, you can still embrace yourself. Because the real reward of intelligence is freedom. Freedom from lies. Freedom from performance. Freedom from the exhausting pressure to pretend. Schopenhauer didn't romanticize intelligence. He knew it came with suffering. He called existence itself a kind of mistake, a curse of craving, striving, and disappointment. But he also knew that once you saw the truth clearly, you could live differently. You could choose not to chase what others chase. You could step off the treadmill of status and into a quieter, deeper way of being. You could find beauty in solitude, peace in detachment, meaning in the very act of seeing clearly. And that is the beginning of wisdom, not the kind that gets likes or retweets, but the kind that carries you through life with your eyes open and your soul intact. So if the world makes you feel like there's something wrong with you for thinking too much, if they tell you you're too quiet, too intense, too serious, smile, because you're not broken, you're awake. And being awake in a sleeping world will always feel strange. But you were not born to blend in. You were born to see. You were born to ask the questions others fear, to endure the silence that follows a truth no one wants to hear, to walk paths that don't yet have footprints. Let the world call you too much. Let them dismiss your depth. Let them mock what they don't understand, but never let them convince you to dim your light, because there are others like you, hidden, watching, waiting, and your courage to think, to speak, to be, might be the very thing that gives them permission to do the same. This is how real change begins, not with crowds, but with individuals brave enough to see clearly and still choose to speak. So keep thinking, keep questioning, keep walking your path even when it's silent, even when it's dark. Because that silence, that darkness, it's not a prison, it's a forge. And what it's shaping is something unbreakable, something rare, something real. You. Let this be your reminder. You don't have to fit in to matter. You don't have to be loud to be powerful. And you don't have to be understood to be right. The world may not value deep thinkers while they're alive, but it remembers them long after they're gone. And maybe, just maybe, that's the highest form of respect there is. If this spoke to you, share it with others, not for us, but for the ones who need to hear that their silence is strength, that their depth is power, and that their mind is a gift the world may fear, but the future will thank. Subscribe to Echoes of Wisdom for more deep dive philosophy from great minds like Schopenhauer. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.